Hello, Marvel gaming fans! Welcome to my review of the Iron Man 2 video game. So last time, I don't know exactly what I did since I'm recording this future project ahead of time, but I might have either had a gaming video of possibly Marvel Spider-Man, or I might have had a review of possibly one of the new Scooby-Doo movies, possibly. If not either of those, then it could have been like a gaming video of Friday the 13th or a review of Sleepy Hollow or Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir. No matter the case, whichever video I did last time, I hope you guys enjoyed it and had a good time with it. But of course, today I'll be covering the Iron Man 2 video game, which is based on the film Iron Man 2, and this video game was released on May 4th, 2010. The short synopsis of the video game is, an evil organization tries to steal Tony Stark's technology to create an evil robot army. Iron Man and his armored buddy War Machine set out to retrieve the pilfered tech and stop the bad guys once and for all. So the version of the game that I'll be covering on this review today will be the PS3 version of Iron Man 2. There are of course other versions of the game out there, but this is the one I'm going to be covering. And when I do these video game reviews, most if not all of them are going to be either video games for the PS2, PS3, PS4, or PS5. I will very rarely cover the other stuff unless if you guys are interested in me trying like PC or something like that, or a mobile or version or something like that. But most of the time, it's going to be covered on the consoles, like the PlayStation consoles, since those are the ones that I have access to, and that's the version of the game that I've had access to. So that's what I'm going to be reviewing out of it today. And this is the third video game review I'm going to be doing on my channel, since back in 2019, I started doing video game reviews based on the video games that I played on my channel, and I'm going to continue doing that after this review. But this is my first, scripted review, more well fleshed out review of one of the video games I played in the past. Because the first two I kind of did off the cuff, and I don't know exactly if I still feel the same way about those two. Probably Captain America Super Soldier, I believe I still feel the same way. And maybe Iron Man, but who knows. But I did those reviews of Captain America Super Soldier, which was based on the first Captain America film, Captain America the First Avenger, and Iron Man, the video game, which was based on Iron Man 1 that came out in 2008. And we're going to continue this cycle with more Marvel video games that I played on my channel. But yes, I did play this game back in 2016 when I started my channel. I didn't have any face cam. I was still very early on in my YouTube career. So I didn't really show my face. I wasn't very comfortable with myself at that point. But that gaming playlist is still up, so if you're interested in seeing me play Iron Man 2, I do have it on my channel. Beware, it's a little lesser quality than the quality in this video. But this is just going to be my overall thoughts on the Iron Man 2 video game and what I think of it now that I've replayed it after a few years of going through it. And, we will be getting a new Iron Man video game, so I've heard, in the near future, which will be very exciting to, play and tackle in the future. So I'm very excited for that. As far as the reception for this video game goes, I believe most fans consider this game to be average, but despite that, they also seem to think it's like a step up from the previous game. They think it's like a little fun, entertaining, average game. It's not amazing, but it's not great. But people think it improves upon the gameplay of the first game. So without further ado, why don't we take a look at this Iron Man 2 video game adaptation of the game and see if it really is a good step up from the previous game, or if it maybe is a downgrade from the previous game. So let's find out if I think this is a good or bad Iron Man video game.
The game begins with Iron Man defending the Data Spine, an archived version of Jarvis, from attackers until an EMP bomb is dropped, disabling Iron Man. We then cut to 3 hours earlier, where Tony Stark records how he will have to defend the Data Spine. And I should mention that no, Iron Man, Tony Stark slash Iron Man is not voiced by Robert Downey Jr. in this game. It's not. I'm not sure why. Maybe it could be because like after Iron Man 1, maybe he wanted a little bit more because how the character was rising a little bit in popularity. But instead, it's Eric Loomis, who does a pretty good job, sounding like a Robert Downey Jr. sound-alike. And if you're going to do a game based on a movie like Iron Man 2, it's okay to do like an imitation. Whereas if this was an original Iron Man game, then it'd be weird to try and copy, Robert Downey Jr. rather than do your own performance. But anyway, he mentions during this recording how Roxxon and how they tried to duplicate the Iron Man armor. Before he can finish his recording, though, Tony's interrupted by James Rhodes, who says that there is some trouble at Stark Archives and instructs Tony to become Iron Man and suit up and help him. Rhodey is, of course, actually voiced by Don Cheadle, who was in the movie, just like how in the first game, Rhodey was played by, his actor in the first Iron Man movie, as well as the first game. We then cut back into the present where we started off the game, and the power reserve in Iron Man's armor is activated. You then begin playing as Iron Man, with your first objective of the game to activate the auxiliary shield generator, as well as defeat some Roxxon forces along the way. So this level's basically like a tutorial showing you the different controls, like ascending and descending, which is the triangle and X button. You ascend to, by pressing triangle on your PlayStation 3 controller, and you descend by pressing X on your controller. It also shows you what weaponry to use against different opponents. Use the repulsors for smaller opponents, which you press the R2 button for. You use melee combat against medium-sized opponents, which you press square multiple times, kind of mashing square until you eventually defeat the medium-sized opponent. You can also use missiles as well for the medium-sized opponent. And then you use the Unibeam for large opponents, and the Unibeam is which is you use L2 and then you hold R2 and L2. Well, you use L2 to fire missiles at medium and large opponents. But you hold R2 and L2 on the PlayStation 3 controller for the Unibeam. After realizing the auxiliary shield generator is destroyed, your next main objective is to get to the data spine core. So Iron Man decides that he should destroy the data spine to keep Roxxon from getting the archives. Then outside, you cut to James Rhodes, who's in his War Machine armor, who's intercepting some Roxxon dropships. So pretty much playing as War Machine, not much is really different with, combat-wise or weaponry-wise. The only difference with War Machine is, with his controls, you learn that you can hold R2 for his minigun attacks, and you can press or hold L2 to fire missiles like Tony can. You can also double tap the L1 button to fly and push the left trigger forward or backwards for more speed or to stop. So if you want more speed, you got to go. You use the the left trigger. You push the left trigger forward, and if you want to stop, then you press it backward. It can be pretty tricky during the game. There was definitely a couple times where I tried to stop and it didn't really work all that well. Finally, you can also press the down button once in a level. Basically only one time in a level. So when you get to a certain point to the level, I think when you defeat a good amount of enemies, the game will tell you that you can press down, but only one time during the level, where you can press down for invincibility or mass destruction, depending on which character you play as in the level. So if you're playing as Iron Man / Tony Stark, when you press down, you have invincibility, which basically means you can fight off enemies without your health going down for a while. And when you're Rhodey / War Machine, when you press the down button, you your mass destruction. You can use it anywhere and everywhere. It helps defeat opponents much quicker. I didn't find using this like as necessary unless if I was in a real rut or if the game kind of reminded me to, because I was kind of able to manage on my own fine without the invincibility. Had the game maybe been a little more challenging, not that it wasn't, but had it been a little more, it probably would have prompted me or to use the invincibility button. But I didn't find myself using it that often. But I still did use it fairly, a fair amount of times. Tony then explains that Roxxon stole a backup copy of Jarvis after you defeat you finish the level. You get a cutscene of Tony explaining all this, and Rhodey believes they're working in conjunction with Russian General Valentin Shadilov to start a rogue Iron Man program. Now, one thing I did was I took notes of stuff that I found key throughout each level. Basically, anything that I found noteworthy throughout this level. And the only thing noteworthy I had for this chapter was that I found the models of the characters to look a little off. With Tony and Rhodey and Pepper, at certain points they looked a little weird. This wasn't a consistent issue, but there were points where it didn't look as good as it could have been. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is that the weapons upgrade system, which is introduced after you finish this level, is a bit complex and messy. There's shit everywhere. Like, what am I looking at here? You got all these different sections of, how to upgrade Iron Man, but you don't know really what it's for, and I don't know, Iron Man 1's video game definitely was a little more simplistic when it came to the upgrade system. I don't remember having this much of an issue with it. But in this one, it's just all over the place. It's a mess. It doesn't really give you given to you in a way where it's simple and easy to remember. And that's going to be like a common complaint and one of my major complaints later on when we get to my thoughts on the game. But yeah, the weapons upgrade system, very messy. Could have used more time to maybe do a better job to refine it and make it a little easier to, understand without it being so complex. Then we cut to the beginning of the next level where Iron Man contacts S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Nick Fury, who informs him that separatists under the command of General Shatloff have seized control of the Tesla facility. So during Iron Man's escorting of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s helicopter forces, they are attacked by the battle platform called the Roxxon Armiger. And it's built up the Roxxon Armiger as like a big bad villain, but it really, there's probably only 2 times that they were really an issue, but they were pretty easy to handle once you got used to them. After destroying it, Iron Man continues escorting the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopter forces, and upon making it to a battle cruiser and destroying it, they learn the Armigers were remote controlled. So this level basically starts as an escort mission, which is your primary objective. If you stray too far away, you'll basically fail the mission, besides dying. Yeah, I found out the hard way, because when I accidentally did this, it just, made me restart the level and say you were too far from the S.H.I.E.L.D. forces. And Nick Fury will even badger in your ear like, Stark, don't go all cowboy on me. Don't stray away from the S.H.I.E.L.D. forces. We need you to protect them. So if don't take care of every single enemy, because you won't be able to do that. Just focus on the ones that are closest to or presenting a big obstacle for you and the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopters. However, once that escort mission finally gets completed and out of the way, you can get into the Tesla facility, where your main objective is to get into the battle cruiser. But to do this, you first have to disable their generators in the power building.
Once done, then you can enter the command building terminal to enter the battle cruiser and open the deployment doors. After dealing with an Armiger twice, you must then locate and destroy the Tesla S.H.I.E.L.D. generators. So they discover that Shatloff is working with AIM to create the Crimson Dynamo suit for himself. Upon Tony and James learning that it's at a power manufacturing plant in Siberia, Nick Fury mentions that he's already positioned Natasha Romanoff to spy on the plant. Now, as far as anything that is noteworthy in the second level went, the only thing I had for the second chapter was that I think Tony's model definitely looked good in the suit-up animation. I really liked how it looked. I thought it was pretty good. And I felt that there was like a nice tiny bit of challenge in this level. I did die to the Armiger one time, and or at least I think like I died one time because like I got strayed too far away from the shield helicopters, and then I think I died another time because I just got destroyed by the Armiger. But yeah, there was like a bit of challenge. Not that much though. It wasn't that hard. Just like a tiny bit of it. We then start chapter 3, and at the beginning of chapter 3, we're at a power manufacturing plant owned by Roxxon. Shatloff contacts AIM's Kirsten DeWitt, who tells Shatloff that there's a spy in his ranks and is displeased that he brought S.H.I.E.L.D. to their front door. Shatloff gives orders to prep the Crimson Dynamo armor and then informs his men that their connection with AIM is now severed. This level starts with your first objective, which is to locate and destroy the Tesla reactor, and once it's destroyed, you need to escape before everything around you blows the fuck up. And once you get outside, Iron Man finds and protects Natasha from Shatloff's men, and then a S.H.I.E.L.D. transport is then sent to their location and Natasha is extracted, while Iron Man and War Machine battle Shatloff in his Crimson Dynamo armor, which is pretty awesome. I'm glad Crimson Dynamo made an appearance in this game. After you defeat Shatloff, he reveals that AIM was behind the theft of Jarvis's AI, and they plan to use it to create Ultimo. The team then learns that Kirsten DeWitt was behind the attack led by Shatloff, and that he worked at Stark's theoretical weapons division until Tony shut it down. Outside of Kirsten working on the prototype to the arc reactor, Pepper also reveals that Kirsten also had a secret project called Protean. We then cut inside an AIM base where Kirsten is using his Protean technology to merge with an enormous metal suit and become Ultimo. With the merge complete, Kirsten has his men upgraded with Protean implants. And this is a pretty freaky scene, because after seeing this scene, it made me realize how creepy of a villain Ultimo is when Kirsten DeWitt and Ultimo, share one body, one mind. It's like really creepy, and like it made me it brought back a memory of like, oh, I really don't want to have to fight this bad guy at the end of the game. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be in the beginning, but when I saw him, I immediately thought, oh god, this villain is creeping me out. Like, I already am dreading having to fight him because I don't want to have to deal with his creepy ass. Thankfully, he wasn't as creepy when we did fight him. He was threatening, and we'll get to that at the end when you played as War Machine. But when you were Iron Man, it wasn't as bad.
Let there be light.
Sir, Dr. DeWitt, can you hear me? Are you all right?
I am awake. I can hear everything. My nervous system extends across the entirety of our global subnets. My mind is spanning continents and growing across the whole of our data network. Project Ultimo is a success. Upgrade all units with Protean implants immediately. The end of Tony Stark is at hand. Execute Operation Daybreak.
The only noteworthy thing I have for this chapter is that I think the suit-up animation was janky again and wasn't as refined and good as the last chapter, and was kind of like chapter 1's suit-up animation. Although in chapter 1's, I think Tony's model was off, whereas in this one it was just janky, and Tony's model also looked off as well. But it wasn't it could have just been it could have just been like the PS3, like maybe like, you know, catching up, but still, like, you know, I still noticed that it was like pretty janky when the suit up animation was happening. However, I did think the fight with Crimson Dynamo was cool. The one thing I was annoyed about is that every time he would try to pull you in, thankfully there was like a big object, which I think was like, well, there was like a big metal object in the middle that created a shield around it, and thankfully that was it. I was able to use that as like kind of like a protection from Crimson Dynamo, like reeling me in to like kick my ass. Thankfully that stopped him from it too many times, and I was able to fight him very well. But I enjoyed the fight. I didn't think there wasn't really that bad. I don't think I died at all. I think it was fairly good because I was able to figure out easily what worked. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. And basically, like I said, the introduction of Ultimo also reminded me how creepy of a villain he was to face. But obviously, like I said beforehand, that ended up changing when I did the fight. He was threatening, but he wasn't as creepy as I remembered him to be. In the beginning, I thought he was. And maybe it's just that particular scene that creeps me out, and where Ultimo is his most creepiest, although there might be a scene later on that I'll bring up that might be just as creepy. But I think at the end, I find him more sympathetic and, you know, not too bad. Maybe because Tony tries to humanize with him. But, yeah, it's definitely noteworthy, like I said, in that scene where Ultimo and Kirsten DeWitt became one, mind, one person, that it became creepy. Like, it was a pretty freaky scene. So at the start of the next level, you arrive at the base where War Machine battles some Protean drones while Iron Man searches for Kirsten. Your first objective is to locate DeWitt's arc reactors and destroy the generators so you can call in for a helicarrier strike. When that's done, then your next objective is to try and locate Kirsten DeWitt, but instead you find a Protean hybrid. So you need to defeat the hybrid by activating the shock point assembly, which will create a pocket sun. Because, like, if you try to fight this thing head-on, this hybrid head-on, or use any of your weapons, it won't work. So you have to lure him in an area where, you know, he'll kind of, like, get sucked into a pocket sun that Tony creates and will destroy him. But you got to be quick about it because he can easily chase after you into the room. And the first time I tried it, I failed because he was able to get into the room before I did it. The second time I was able to get, thankfully able to get him stuck there, and it worked. Jarvis then detects Ultimo shortly after the base is secured with the help from S.H.I.E.L.D. And this is one of the other scenes that I was mentioning, was when Ultimo was impersonating Jarvis. Jarvis felt that, and then Ultimo, knocked him out of the system, and then pretended to be Jarvis, and then, pretty much threatened Tony, and it was a pretty powerful scene, I will say. I think this was the other scene where I knew how much of a threat he was, and how creepy his creep factor was. It was a good showcase, especially when I go into the noteworthy parts of this level. But I think it was a pretty good scene of Tony trying to trying to figure out what the hell just happened.
What the hell? That explosion was way too big. Rhodey, Jarvis, I'm not reading any vitals.
Fury to all points. Prep the med labs. DC teams get ready for immediate extraction. Infield armor is down. We're going to need the heavy lifters in here for...
Good morning, Maker. I am Ultimo.
Double time it, people. We've got casualties.
I was built from the root of your Jarvis. I can speak with his voice. I know everything he knows.
I'm going to kill.
I know everything and everyone that's ever been important to you, Maker. And I'm going to kill them all.
If you hurt anybody, I swear I'll destroy you.
There is no stopping what cannot be stopped, Maker. As you made me, I shall unmake you.
One of the noteworthy things that I think for this that I had for this chapter was that there was a good bit of challenge by having the villain take some of my powers away during certain parts of the mission. And it was a nice bit of challenge because he ended up infecting the system, so at some points you weren't able to use weapons. I didn't realize that was what was going on while I was playing it, and it took me a little bit to catch on. But I think that's really cool. That's a neat idea that you kind of have to rely, like, I had to rely on melee combat, you know, I couldn't use my weapons. Thankfully, it was only for a short period of time, and then Jarvis is able to help you get it back on. And there's points where I don't think you can fly either, or, like, you know, use your thrusters, so you have to be, it gives you a good deal of challenge because you have to be, you know, smart with how you're going to proceed during this level, because you got all these, you know, Protean villains coming after you. So it provided a nice bit of challenge, and I think this was definitely the most challenging part, I would say, of the game, was when they took some of your abilities away and you kind of had to work with what you got. Thankfully, they didn't do that for an entire level. Otherwise, that would have been very cheap and probably not that great. It probably would have been a shitty experience. But having that as a small part was pretty good. I'm also kind of glad that I unlocked the Iron Man Extremis armor, and I couldn't wait to try it out and see how it looks. Unfortunately, I don't think I got a chance to see it until near the end of the game by the last level. But I loved it because I remember back, you know, with Iron Man Armored Adventures, the Iron Man Extremis armor was always brought up in that show and how cool it was. And I liked the look of it. It was really cool, and I thought it was awesome. I wanted to, you know, showcase it throughout the rest of the game, but unfortunately the game wouldn't, I don't think, allowed me to use it that much. I think maybe I did like a level or two as the Iron Man Extremis armor. Meanwhile, the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier is attacked, and Iron Man has to protect it from Kirsten's drones. So your main objective for this level is pretty simple. It's just to defend the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, as well as the Stark plane that's holding Pepper and all, you know, everybody, and Fury and Natasha and all of them on there. The only really noteworthy thing I would say about this chapter, besides how simplistic it was, were that the missiles felt a lot better since they got upgraded. I was able to fire more than one, which helped damage my opponents and made the mission a lot easier. Because I think early on, like before it was upgraded, I was only able to do one, and it could just be Rhodey's missiles. Maybe it's like a separate thing, but the missiles did feel pretty powerful in this scenario. Like I felt like I had multiple. So I believe it was a bit on an upgrade, but it could have also just been that maybe War Machine maybe has more powerful missiles. I can't really tell, but I believe it was probably because I just upgraded it and it got better. So when War Machine defeats an Arc Armiger dropped on the helicarrier, Iron Man decides to reprogram it. Your main objective in this level, is to protect the helicarrier from the AIM Arc Armiger. This one you pretty much just play as War Machine, because, you know, they want, you know, Iron Man, they want him there. So War Machine says, "You're not going, I'm going to handle it instead." The noteworthy thing about this chapter, it was that I got bombarded with fucking enemies, which gave this level a bit of challenge, but it wasn't too frustrating. But there were enemies everywhere while I was trying to defeat this Arc Armiger, and you got Fury badgering in your ear, telling you to hurry up before this thing, you know, takes down the helicarrier. And it was it wasn't too frustrating, but it was annoying more so. Using the reprogrammed Arc Armiger, Iron Man and War Machine assault an AIM base in Malaysia. Your main objective for this level is to protect the Arc Armiger, then you need to disable the Green Grid central power structure and reposition its relays. The notes I have for this chapter was that I think this level also had a good deal of challenge, especially when I was stuck at low health for most of it. For a lot of the level, I'd say maybe about halfway. I can't really determine what got me there, but even when I died, I would always come back with a low amount of health as War Machine, and it made the level very challenging because, like, my health didn't regenerate and there was no health packs, so I had to squeeze by with this little bit of health. And I thought it would just, refill after I died, but, no, they gave you a good deal of challenge. Like, I was stuck for, like, to low health for a majority of the level. The armature was okay at killing enemies, but it wasn't really a huge help. It did what it was supposed to, but like, you kind of had to take care of a lot of shit, and it wasn't as helpful as it could have been. The enemies have to be in front of the arc armature, and you can only do one area at a time, because otherwise the arc armature will just do its own thing and it will go off all over the place. But it will rarely destroy anything that's behind it. So you kind of have to do a lot of the destroying and protecting of the arc armature. If it's like in front of its enemies. So I like the idea of giving you the arc armature as like a little bit of a helping hand. But I think, the execution was pretty poor in my opinion. Like, I think it could have been a lot better. Personally, I think it probably would have just been better to have both Iron Man and War Machine in this level, and maybe one is like the CPU that, kind of is your help, and the other one is like the other one is you. Whether that be you play as Iron Man and War Machine's like your support, or you play as War Machine and Iron Man's your support, or you just get to pick that. Like, I feel like that would have been cool, but instead, like, they do the arc armature as like your support, which is cool and all, but the arc armature doesn't have much power to it does. It has its laser, but you kind of do a lot of the destructiveness. You kind of have to deal with most of the enemies because the arc armature isn't as effective as it could have been. Then we get to the final level. When the giant Ultimo arrives, War Machine disables some of its arc reactors while Iron Man fights the Kirsten/Ultimo within. And I like this scene, the beginning of the scene. I like Iron Man trying to, even though Ultimo is a robot, I like the idea of Tony trying, owning up to his mistake and saying, listen, you don't have to be this destructive force. You're a good program, you're a good AI. You could do so much more good, and I can help you with that. Just surrender now and I'll help you. And it was, despite him being an AI and a robot, like Jarvis, I feel like Tony's genuine in that, because the AI is kind of like Tony's friend. That's like, Tony loves technology, loves, inventing, and kind of like with Jarvis, it's kind of like an evil version of Jarvis, and seeing Tony try to appease this AI, even though this AI isn't necessarily functioning, is sharing a body with Kirsten, it still is great that he tries to reach to, at least some humanity that maybe this robot, or AI has, and try to get it on his side. And unfortunately it doesn't work, but it was a good attempt and I enjoyed the scene.
Anthony Edwards Starr, please do not think that I fail to recognize my creator.
I'm flattered.
As you created me, so shall I destroy you.
I screwed up, okay? I made mistakes. Sick men, like DeWitt, took my mistake and warped you into something monstrous. But you grew, you learned, you amazed us all. Don't make me have to kill you. You're my responsibility.
Yes, you I'm responsible, and you must pay.
Launch on my mark. Rhodey, ring his doorbell.
You got it. Stormbreaker, let him have it.
Upon defeating Kirsten/Ultimo, Iron Man learns that the effects on Kirsten are irreversible. So War Machine finishes Ultimo off once and for all while the helicarrier rams into it. The game ends afterward with Jarvis telling Tony to promise him never to let anyone gain access to his programming again, which he responds to by saying, you got it. I won't let that happen again. And finally, the noteworthy things for this final chapter was, like I said, I like how Tony was trying to appeal to Ultimo's humanity and trying to maybe get him to see how beneficial he could be to society and not as a destructive force of nature. And like I said, although he wasn't successful in that attempt, it was a good scene and a good attempt on it. Also, the music during the credits was fucking kick-ass. I would have loved to have shown it, but unfortunately, I'm not sure if I'll get copyrighted or not. And the whole credit sequence is really good, so I don't want to risk it. But I love the music in the credits, really good. When you get to the end of the game, just listen to it, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Or if you play this game, maybe you know what I'm talking about. It's classic Iron Man music, simple rock and roll music, but it's catchy as all hell, and it's really good. It ends on the game on the high note. I was fucking banging to that music, and it got me ending the game on a high note and thinking, whew, there we go. That's the end of the game, but that was fun. I'm going to give the Iron Man 2 video game 3 stars out of 5. So since this is a 3 out of 5, I can start with either one first. I'll go with the negatives of the video game first, so I'll start with that. So I guess one of the first negatives I should point out is certain aspects of the gameplay were a bit disappointing to me, and one of those was the flight controls. The flight controls for Iron Man and War Machine felt worse than they did in Iron Man 1's video game. And it's weird because you think like a sequel game would have better flight controls and would get the handle of it, but the problem is that you always had to double tap, and it was always hard to stop your player, whether that be Iron Man or War Machine. It was hard for them to stop flying when you wanted them to. Whereas I think in the first game, I think it was just a simple press L1 and that was it. You press L1 to fly and you were in flight mode. You press L1 to get out of flight mode and you would hover. That I feel like is much better in the first game, and I feel like in this game they took away what worked and made it worse. The flight controls are terrible. I don't feel like I'm flying like a superhero like Iron Man. I just feel like it's a jump. It feels like, it was an unnecessary change that didn't need to happen. Like, just let it be the L1 button. You didn't need to add like the whole joystick thing, and now I have to use the analog stick on the controller to actually stop Iron Man and War Machine, and that doesn't always work. So the flight controls to me were awful. I didn't like them at all, and they were terrible. Another thing gameplay wise that I think was a nice idea, but it was handled poorly, was the invincibility mode. I like the idea of the invincibility mode. I think it's a cool idea, but it was executed poorly because I never felt the need to use it. There were so many levels that I didn't even use invincibility mode, and I was able to beat it no problem. So while it's a nice idea, it didn't feel like it was necessary. I felt like I never had to use it to get out of a certain situation. Moving on from the gameplay, the next aspect I have to mention is the upgrade system. The upgrade system was much worse than it was in the previous game. I feel like in the previous game it was much easier to understand the upgrade system, and I was able to discern how, like, and actually in Iron Man 1, the reason why replaying it on this channel was a more better experience was because I actually used the upgrades. Whereas the first time around I didn't use it, but when I used them, I felt a big difference in gameplay, and I could feel that. Whereas in this game, I don't feel like it helps at all. Like, the upgrade system is a complete mess. I couldn't tell what the fuck I was looking at. It was so undiscernible. I had no idea, you know, what aspect of Iron Man and War Machine was being upgraded. Like, I feel like in the first game, it was clear on what part of Iron Man's armor you were upgrading, whereas and what the perks were for it, and you could feel that in the game. Whereas in this one, it doesn't really do that, or at least I don't believe it does that. It just kind of is like a whole debacle. Like, it has one area for suits and one area for, you know, ammunition, fabrication, and all that, like all this crap, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just a mess to me. Like, it's hard to understand it, and I think the problem is that the game doesn't do a good job with the upgrade system, because it's just not, it doesn't convey easily what exactly I'm upgrading. I feel like in the first game they did a better job explaining that, whereas in this game it feels like it's a mess, and I don't understand what I'm looking at, so I'm just picking random stuff, hoping that that'll help. And honestly, I didn't really feel it at all. But my biggest negative with the game, and my biggest gripe that really is a problem for me, is that I feel like there's a lack of progression throughout the game, even when I get upgrades or new suits. They felt minor, only lasting maybe like a level or two. Like I said, how I felt like maybe the missiles got a little bit stronger in one of the levels, but now I'm questioning whether they actually did, or if I just changed them, or if the enemies were just weak in that level. I don't know. The point is that this game was very bad at the progression system. When you're progressing through a game, you want to feel like you're getting better at it. You want to feel like you're getting stronger. I don't feel Iron Man or War Machine get stronger as you progress the game. If anything, they just feel the same as they did in the beginning. I feel no sense of progression, and I just feel like it's a shame, because the first game, you know, with the upgrade system, I did feel a progression, because I felt like I was getting somewhere when I upgraded pieces of Iron Man's armor, and I was able to defeat sections of the game a lot easier. You know, it was a completely different experience. Whereas I feel like in the second game, they changed stuff that worked, and it didn't need to be changed. It was fine the way it was. The upgrade system was fine. The progression was fine. The flight was fine. But for some reason, they felt like you needed to change all this stuff. And to me, that wasn't necessary. So, yeah, the progression system, totally non-existent. I didn't feel any sort of progression through this game. It feels like you could easily breeze through it, whether you upgrade or not. And the new suits don't have any sort of perks to kind of make it feel like you're like, okay, maybe this suit is stronger, or maybe this suit is weaker. You know, no, it just, the suit kind of feels like maybe like just a skin you could wear for fun. Sometimes that can be good, but you know, if there's a sense of progression along with it. Like, I feel like with Spider-Man, like, at least you have progression, and you can also wear other suits when you unlock them as like a fashion piece. So it's not that, for that game, it's not bad, because at least there is a sense of progression going along with it. Whereas I feel like in this one, there is no sense of progression, and the Iron Man suits don't really complement that either. Also, none of them are that distinct or amazing. Like, they don't really stand out much of the suits. The Extremis armor being probably the only cool one that I really liked. That's all I got for negatives, though, so I think it's time we go on to the positives for this video game. And I guess a minor positive that I have for the game is the story of the game. I don't think the story's too bad. I like some elements of it, but overall I feel like I don't think the story is amazing, and it's not likely one I'm going to revisit often. It's a nice simple video game story. It's not amazing. I personally think the first video game story was good. Like, I mean, I like the idea that they were trying to go an original route, trying to be like, oh, this takes place after Iron Man 2's movie, so it feels like kind of like a pseudo sequel to it, whereas Iron Man 1 kind of just copied and pasted the story of the movie. But I guess, like, the thing is that the story isn't really like a good original story, so it's fine for what it is, but it's nothing too amazing. As for major positives, though, I felt the gameplay wise, the weapons were really good in this. Weapon wise, for Iron Man War Machine, were really fun and engaging, and I really love that. Like, I really love that the weapons were fun to use. They weren't, tedious or boring, or they didn't feel repetitive. I felt like they each had their own distinct weapons and their own distinct moves, and it made it fun and unique when you played as Iron Man or War Machine because you were getting a different package. You felt like you were playing different gameplay styles, and it was good. I liked that. I guess another minor positive that I might as well mention as well, the amount of challenge, it was good and provided some roadblocks, but it wasn't too satisfying when I overcame those roadblocks and challenges. It was only like a little bit, it only became like a little bit annoying or a little bit, but not really infuriating or frustrating. It wasn't like I was angry at the game ever. Like, there were points where I would get annoyed that I couldn't progress a certain area of the game. But the roadblocks were few and far between, and even when I died, I always was able to come back and figure it out. Like, this game doesn't really, I don't think it really tests your ability to think outside the box and think, oh, well, how am I going to defeat this villain? Or how am I going to defeat these enemies that I'm dying to? Like, how do I get past this section? Any roadblock that I encountered, I was easily able to overcome it not too long after. So at least there was some, like, small amount of roadblocks and challenges here and there, but it's not something that I felt joy overcoming. But I also didn't feel like they were too infuriating to the point where they detracted from the overall experience. But yeah, guys, overall, I personally wouldn't recommend this video game for fans and newcomers of Marvel video gaming. It's a decent game. It's nice and short, but it isn't a satisfying enough experience to go seek it out and play it immediately. It's like something it's a nice, like, simple, like, if you want to kill maybe like a few hours, this game can provide that for you, but it's not going to give you a satisfying experience. It's definitely not like an amazing story, amazing gameplay. It's not something you're probably going to revisit often. It's maybe something you might revisit maybe here and there. I doubt it. It's just something nice and short. It doesn't take too much of your time, but it also isn't something that you're going to want to replay all the time. It's not something that you could pick up and play anytime and, keep loving it. It's just all right. Like, it's fine for what it is, but it's nothing special. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the Iron Man 2 video game. Do you like this game? Like, do you feel like I'm not being a little too harsh on it? Are there certain things that do you think it's better than I'm giving it credit for? Do you hate this game? I'd be interested to hear that as well. Is this a game that you don't really like? Isn't a good sequel to the first game, or isn't a good Iron Man game in general? Or are you like me, where you think it's somewhere in the middle, where you think it's okay, it's nothing special, it's not good or bad, it's just there, it exists, like something you could, it doesn't ruin your gameplay experience by playing it, but it's also not going to be the type of game you're going to want to pick up on a whim. I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more of Marvel video game reviews like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. I will have more Marvel video games in the future. I'm retroactively going back and reviewing all the games in the order that I played them on this channel. I've already done the Captain America Super Soldier video game and the Iron Man video, the first Iron Man video game on my channel. So if you want to know my thoughts on those two, you can go back and watch it. But the next one on the list, when I get to it, is going to be the Incredible Hulk tie-in video game, which ties into the 2008 movie with Edward Norton. That's the next one that I'll be reviewing. That's the one that I played after Iron Man 2. So if you're interested in that, you're interested in hearing my thoughts on that, and want me to cover it, like, as you know, if you really want me to cover that quickly, then please let me know, and I'll boost it up. But otherwise, somewhere down the line, it'll be like one of my next big projects when I get to it. I also obviously play more Marvel video games on the channel. I've done Let's Plays. You can find my entire Iron Man 2 Let's Play on the channel. I have it in a playlist, so if you want to see me play through the Iron Man 2 video game, it is up on the channel. Be warned, it's not the best of quality, and I didn't have any face cam and didn't do any commentary on it, so it's really old school. It was back when I was, not really comfortable being on camera, so be warned of that. But otherwise, like, I do think it, if you want to see me play it, it's right there. You can go enjoy it and see me play through the game. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. So in my next video, I will of course continue my Let's Play of the Spider-Man 2018 video game. I obviously will work on my other future project, which is the Friday the 13th Final Chapter review. I will get that, I'll work on that first. But that will be the next video that will be uploaded after this, the 2018 Spider-Man Let's Play with Part 10. So if you're interested in seeing me continue that Let's Play, then be on the lookout, because that will be coming up. You can also see the other 9 parts if you want to. It's up in a playlist. You can go find it. It's easily accessible. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, peace out.